Hey, what's up, YouTube family? It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Yes, there's plenty of black people here in Nebraska. So we are still in the book, America's the Truer World. I appreciate the positive comments, the positive feedback I have been receiving. I really appreciate it. You guys don't know how much that, actually motivates me and keeps me going. So for those who enjoy the content, thank you. For those who don't, you got free will. You don't have to be here. But I get that a lot of people do like to hate watch content, so that does exist. So we are going to talk about the Timucuan Indians, or the Ethiopians and the Assyrians of Florida. All right, there's a lot of picture evidence here in this part of the chapter that we're going to enjoy and we are going to learn about, okay? And we're just going to go ahead and enjoy this information. Let's go ahead and get started. Timucuan and Timucuan are etymologically and phonetically the same word due to similar spelling and similar pronunciation. However, let's break it down even further, since the root of Timucuan is Timu, tame, which is short for to marry, since the vowels are sacred and interchangeable and were sometimes omitted in words. The suffix of Timucuan is kan, which is obviously Khan, since the letters C and U in Kwan are equivalent to the letters K and H in Khan. And these two letters can be substituted because they're interchangeable like vowels. Therefore, when you combine the prefix and the suffix of Timucuan, you will form the word Timucuan, using my breakdown or interpretation. Khan is an Asian title that means king or priest. And before we go further, we have a figure 91, 1718, France and Acadian map of La Louisiana, which is identical in size and shape to figures 90 and 92, which suggests we are dealing with the same territory and landmass. Tamari in Amaru, or Amaru, Tamaru, is derived from the Sumerian god Amaru. Tamari is also an old name for Egypt. It relates to Ethiopia Superior, aka Abyssinia and Assyria. Abyssinia and Assyrian, which was the huge landmass known as La Floridas, Tamari, or Ethiopia Superior. La Louisiana, Babylon, and Carolina, Turkish for black, landmass, C92. La Floridas, Tamari, Ethiopia Superior. La Louisiana, Akkadian, Sumerian, Assyrian, and Babylonian. The Timucuan Indians had a vast territory of land that covered most of North Florida and Central Florida prior to the Spanish invasion of Florida in the 1500s. The territory of Timucuan landed Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Callahan, Tampa, Orlando, etc. The Timucuan were the first natives of Florida. They were a race of giants. Wow. The average height for the Timucuan man was between 7 and 8 feet tall. Figures 93 is an image of a Timucuan chief, Saturiwa. Chief Saturiwa was so dark that you could barely see his tattoos, and he was a giant that was 8 feet tall. He was called the Prince of Florida and was labeled the Moor with the Emerald level by Belshazzar Permoser. Okay. Sculptor William Kruger. Sculptor John Melchior Dillinger, jeweler. Emerald gift of 1581. Jewelry and sculptural works, probably 1724. Pure wood, painted, silver, gold, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, topazes, garnets, almandine, turquoise shell, emerald. Okay, image from the Green Vault at Disredden State Art Collections 2013. And I believe that we're going to go ahead and look at that figure on the next page. And this is the figure that he was speaking about. This is Chief Satchwachwa, aka the Prince of Florida, the Moor with the Emerald level. And here's a map, figure 92, 1714 map of Carolina. This map is identical in size and shape to figures 90 and 91. Carolinas is Turkish for black, and likewise Tamari means the land of the Moors. It means lands of the blacks. And all that information was what I was reading right here. So basically, this was describing the pictures that we were going to see on the next page. So I kind of got lost there a little bit, but I'm glad we were able to kind of find ourselves again. All right, so there's picture evidence here representing what this man, the point this man is making. All right, let's go ahead and continue to read. Chief Saturawa formed an alliance with the French Huguenots against the Spanish invasion of the Americas in the 1500s. Since the Huguenots and the Timucuan were both Moors, they had a common enemy. The French Huguenots are allegedly responsible for building St. Augustine, Florida, since St. Augustine was allegedly founded by French Huguenots. The French Huguenots were allies of the French Acadians. St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest city in America, allegedly founded in 1562 by the French Huguenot Captain Jean Ribault, which is 43 years older than the founding of Jamestown, Virginia. St. Augustine is the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in the continental United States. Tourist attractions include two national monuments that are sites of old Spanish forts, Castillo de San Marcos and Fort Matanzas. Figure 94 is a Thor, the son of the Indian Timucuan chief Sechua, showing René de Galin de Lenardier, the monument allegedly placed by Jean Ribault in 1562. The monument has French fleur de lis on it. French fleur de lis is a French word that means lily flower in English. The lily is also the symbol of Israel. The flower de lis has Florida written all over it too. Fleur de la Floridas. The fleur de lis resembles the Prince of Wales feathers. The Prince of Wales feathers are a heraldic badge of the Prince of Wales, the heir to the British throne. The badge consists of 3 white ostrich feathers encircled by a gold coronet. A ribbon below the coronet bears the German motto Ich Dien, as well as being used in royal heraldry. The feathers are sometimes used to symbolize Wales itself, particularly in Welsh rugby union and Welsh regiments of the British Army, end quote. And that quote can be found in Wikipedia. Interesting that Florida has a Lake Wales with a medieval Pictish Druid tower that's called the Balk Tower. The Balk Tower has an image of Poseidon on its wall. Poseidon was the god of the Mediterranean Sea. Wales is a Welsh-speaking country in British Isles. Another Welsh connection we can make is Jekyll Island, which is located off the coast of Georgia in Glenn County, Georgia. Jekyll Island means the island of Wales in French. Jekyll Island was originally a Timucuan and Gael Indian establishment prior to Spanish colonization. The fact that the Timucuan and Gaul Indians lived together suggests that they were both blood allies. Since this is what a family and friends do, we live together when we are in love and harmony with each other. From the looks of the image of French monument on figure 94, Alfor is a swarthy, dark black Indian that is wearing a fez, and so are the Timucuans that are celebrating the French monument in said image. If the French were enemies of the Timucua would not be celebrating the French monument left by an enemy, you would think. It makes more sense that the Timucua are celebrating the French monument because the French and the Timucua were blood allies as Moors, especially since the French were also gypsies. And we know from the book by David McRitchie, I can't remember the name of the book of that, and I got 2 volumes of the book, Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, that the gypsies were Moors. Ethiopian, Indian, Moor, Gypsy, Tartar, as I will demonstrate further later, since these terms are referring to the same people. St. Augustine is also known for a spectacular Moorish revival and Spanish Renaissance revival buildings from the late 19th century. These include the former Hotel Alcazar and Ponce de Leon Hotel, both built by industrialist Henry Flagler. The Alcazar now houses St. Augustine City Hall and the Leiter Museum, which is known for its collection of 19th century fine and decorative art. The Ponce de Leon is now part of Flagler College. The French Huguenots were Moors. According to the book, History of Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors by Henry Coop, Volume 2. It has been asserted that when the Moors were driven out, thousands took refuge in the south of France, who afterwards, abhorring the Roman Catholic persecutions, became Huguenots, and that of these many emigrated at a later date to South Carolina. The average lifespan of the Timucuan Indians were between 300 and 350 years. I believe that's the reason the Timucuan Indians were able to live for so long was due to a healthy diet and the fresh spring water from the Fountain of Youth located in St. Augustine, Florida, which is in Timucuan territory, Ethiopia and Assyria. One of their chiefs asserted to me that he was 300 years old and that his father, whom he appointed out to me, was 50 years older than he. It is true to say that on looking at them, he seemed all skin and bones. The Indians put us Christians to shame, for we, by overindulgence in food and drink, shorten our lives considerably. We should attend the barbarian school in order to learn temperance. Now that is a quote from a Florida memory, and that is the link where you can check the quote out. Now you see figure 94. A Thor, son of the Indian Timucuan chief Saturua, showing Rene del Galine del Lardinier the monument allegedly placed by Jean Ribault in 1562. So, the Timucuans were described as Pictish, and we know that Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, the Picts were Moors, black people, in appearance, and the women were described as looking Irish by the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto, since both the Timucuan and the Picts were both known for painting their faces and for having tattoos on their bodies. Here we go, next page. Pict, possibly from the Latin picti, painted, one of an ancient people who lived in what is now eastern and northeastern Scotland, from Caithness to Fife. Their name may refer to the custom of body paint or possibly tattooing. The Picts were gypsy people. It is common knowledge that gypsy is short for Egyptian. Gypsy is short for Egyptian, according to various sources. David McRitchie, I just quoted, in his book, Ancient and Modern Britons, refers to the gypsy people as Ethiopians, Cushites. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, gypsy is a shortened and altered form of Egyptian. Gypsy, noun, a shortened and altered form of Egyptian, so called because gypsies were once believed to have come from Egypt. David McRitchie has a title in the said book entitled French Gypsies. According to David McRitchie, the French were also gypsies, and the word gypsy is equivalent to Tartary, Tartarian. And here's another picture. Timucuan Indian. Notice the fez is wearing and the tattoos on his body. Of these tribes, then, the Agathri, Deloni, and Tartary are believed to have come to Ireland, as it had also done in the verse of Virgil and Claudine. Before this nation quitted its Thracian home, therefore, since in the terminology of modern Denmark, gypsy equals Tartar, the invasion of tattooed gypsies, and consequently, these gypsies were Picts. Again, because the 15th century gypsies of Galloway were Moors, and the Moors were Picts. Nec falso nomine Pictos. These Galloway gypsies were Picts, but a less equivocal evidence than either of these is that afforded by Holland's description of a gypsy troop that entered Paris in the year 1427. The men were black. Their hair curled, the women were remarkably black, and all their faces scarred. Here, beyond doubt, the gypsies were Picts. The French gypsies were tattooed like their Irish kindred. The Agathri, like the scarified Hungarians, and like other branches of their race. The Scottish division in some cases were tattooed and others painted. End quote, Ancient and Modern Britons. So that's a quote from Ancient and Modern Britons, the book. Figure 95, in which we just looked at, is another Timucuan Indian wearing a fez. As you can see, the Timucuan people were swarthy Moors from the land of the Moors, Temeri, or Ethiopia Superior in La Floridas. The fez is a Moorish tradition. The Timucuan were Native American people who lived in northeastern and north central Florida and in southeast Georgia. They were the largest indigenous group in that area and consisted of about 35 chiefdoms, many leading thousands of people. The various groups of Timucuan spoke several dialects of the Timucuan language. At the time of European contact, Timucuan speakers occupied about 19,200 square miles in the present-day states of Florida and Georgia, with an estimated population of 200,000. Malenik notes that the population density calculated from these figures 10.4 square miles, is close to the population densities calculated by other authors for the Bahamas and for Hispaniola at the time of first European contact. The territory occupied by Timucuan speakers stretched from the Altahama River and Cumberland Island in present-day Georgia as far as south as Lake George in central Florida, and from the Central Ocean west to the Aquila River in Florida Panhandle, though it reached the Gulf of Mexico at no more than a couple of points. The name Timucua to refer to the Utina, another group to the west of the St. Johns River. The Spanish came to use the term more broadly for other peoples in the area. Eventually, it became the common term for all peoples who spoke what is known as Timucuan. I'm right here. While alliances and confederacies arose between the chiefdoms from time to time, the Timucua were never organized into a single political unit. The various groups of Timucua speakers practiced several different cultural traditions. The people suffered severely from the introduction of Eurasian infectious diseases. By 1595, their population was estimated to have been reduced from 200,000 to 50,000, and 13 chiefdoms remained. By 1700, the population of the tribe had been reduced to an estimated 1,000 due to slave raids from Carolinian settlers and other Indian allies. The local slave trade completed their extinction as a tribe soon after the turn of the 18th century, end quote. Concerning the origin of the Timucua, much has been guessed, but little is known. The early explorers recorded no myths or folk stories concerning the origin of the people. Archaeologists and anthropologists have arrived at these possible conclusions. 1. The culture of Florida developed from the north. 2. From Central America by way of the Gulf Coast. 3. From Central America by the way of the Antilles. And 4. From Mexico. The origin of the Picts is uncertain. Some evidence suggests that they were descendants of pre-Celtic Aborigines, but some linguists' evidence suggests that they spoke a Celtic language. The Picts were first noticed in AD 297, when a Roman writer spoke of the Picts and Irish Scots attacking Hadrian's Wall. Their warfare with the Romans during the occupation was almost continual. By the 7th century, there was a united Pict land, which already had been penetrated by Christianity. In 843, Kenneth I Macapalan, king of the Scots, became the king of the Picts, uniting their two lands in a new kingdom of Alba, which evolved into Scotland. End quote. Scotland comes from Scoti, the Latin name for the Gaels. Philip Freeman has speculated on the likelihood of a group of raiders adopting a name from the Indo-European root Scot, citing the parallel in Greek skotos, meaning darkness. The late Latin word Scotia, land of the Gaels, was initially used to refer to Ireland, and likewise in Old English Scotland was used for Ireland. By the 11th century of the latest Scotia was being used to refer to Gaelic-speaking Scotland north of River North, alongside Albania or Albany, both derived from the Gaelic Alba. The use of the words Scot in Scotland to encompass all of what is now Scotland became common in the late Middle Ages. Dating back centuries, Gaelic is the found language of Scotland that has started to originate from Ireland. It spread its way across the country as the principal Scottish language of the medieval kingdom of Alba, attending from the borders to Bourbonshire, the Highlands and Islands, end quote. Interesting that the Gaels, Scots, and Franks had a medieval kingdom in Alba. Alba is the Gaelic equivalent to Albania, Albany, and Albion. Albion is also an alternative name for Great Britain. Scotland was once called Albion. Okay. Albion is an alternative name for Great Britain. The oldest attestation of the toponym come from the Greek language. It is sometimes used poetically and generally to refer to the island, but it's less common than Britain today. The name for Scotland in most of the Gaelic languages is related to Albion, Alba in Scottish, Gaelic, Albion in Irish, Naubin in Manx, and Alban in Welsh and Cornish. These names were later Latinized as Albania and Angelicized as Albany, which were once alternative names for Scotland. New Albion and Albinoria were briefly suggested as names of Canada during the period of the Canadian Confederation. Francis Drake gave the name New Albion to what is now California when he landed there in 1579. We can also consider Albion, California, Alabama, Albany, New York, Albany, Georgia, Albany, Oregon, Albany, California, Albemarle, North Carolina, Albalera, Minnesota, Albertson, New York, Albertville, Alabama, Albertville, Minnesota, Albion, Michigan, Albion, New York, Albuquerque, New Mexico. With all these Alba, Albany, Albion place names, we can make a convincing argument that the superior or greater Albion, aka British Isles, was in the Americas. And there's a chapter on that. The British Isles include Scotland and Ireland. The Timucuan are said to have come from Florida from Mexico. Interestingly, that Mexico has a city called Hermosillo, formerly called Pictic, a city located in the center of the northwestern Mexican state of Sonora. Pictic sounds and looks like a Pict or Pictish. Plus, there is a Monte Alban in Mexico and in British Isles. Alban can become Alba, Albany, or Albion very easily, since vowels can be omitted or added, and vowels can be substituted with other vowels. All right. And you know what? I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna finish this tomorrow. That's enough information for you guys right now, and that's enough information for me, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna finish this tomorrow. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed what we read, and we're gonna go ahead and continue and finish it tomorrow. It's a lot of information in here. That's a lot of things to process. So what he's saying is Scotland and the British Isles and the Picts were indigenous Indians from the Americas that came from here instead of those other places that are modern Britain and modern Scotland today. So there's a lot of information in here. I hope you guys like the pictures. Timucuan Indian. Notice the fez he's wearing and the tattoos on his body. A Moorish Indian, okay? Spanish conquistadors coming to La Floridas and finding the Timucuan Indians and getting an understanding for their culture and things of that nature. So Chief Saturiwa, aka the Prince of Florida, the Moor with the emerald level. And a lot of people have seen this picture. This picture is pretty popular. So that is the thus far the understanding of the Timucuan Indians. That is the history of the Timucuan Indians. We're going to continue this tomorrow. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Yes, there's plenty of black people from Nebraska. And thank you if you're still here. All right, peace.